Even with the digital skills, at first you have to overcome maybe some psychological barriers to understand that it's not scary, it's not complicated. I can get to it, I can understand it. We had, for example, some participants of our seminars, people who worked in Ukraine, let's say at a factory for 20 years, and they never even had the need to create a CV, which is basically a thing that you need right now if you are like gonna enter another job market. They never had the need to know how to sell themselves and their skills, which is both a digital skill but also like a soft skill to know how to kind of present yourself so that you are not desperate to find a job.
Welcome to the Digital Government Podcast. Tune in to discover the future of governance and ways of getting there.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Digital Government Podcast with your usual host, Federico Plantera, journalist, sociologist, researcher, today speaking about DEUS, Digital Empowerment of Ukrainian Community in Estonia. It's a project of e-Governance Academy, ongoing, that today I have the pleasure to talk about with Dmitro Hudki, who is an expert at e-Governance Academy Competence Center on e-governance and engagement, and Olena Denisenko, who is an analyst at the Johan Skytte Institute of Political Studies of Tartu University and digital envoy and participating in this project. So let's get into it by basically introducing the project.
The idea is that we have a big Ukrainian community in Estonia, especially of those who came after the start of the full-scale war, of Russia's war against Ukraine. And they have to adapt, they have to adjust in this new environment, but also many keep a track and connections with their Ukrainian, reality. And they have to navigate within two digital ecosystem. They have to, know two sets of digital services, because these are needed for like social benefits, work, for like everyday banking, everything. So for many people, this is a challenge. Not for everyone, but for many. This is why we wanted to boost these digital skills so that people, can adapt to the situation better. And we used not a standard model of like teaching people. We used a model of training the trainers. So in a sense, we provide intensive training for whom we call digital envoys, who in turn go to their local communities or online and pass this knowledge on further to other Ukrainians in Estonia.
So you have mentioned the digital envoys. The digital envoys, for context, are also related to mini projects, let's say, that are happening within the umbrella of DEUS. There are different ones, and today also we will get a bit more into one of these as an example case, let's say. But also, those projects are target specific, let's say, and like domain specific. Before we get to that, was there instead anything that maybe we can anticipate in terms of like what are some of the most common of these challenges, let's say, that are related to the digital vulnerability of members of the community?
Yes. So all the cybersecurity risks, they are definitely a challenge. Then gaining job, learning Estonian, then perhaps keeping like mental well-being. So all these things that people like encounter in their everyday life.
As I said, there are many things that also belong to many different domains of life. And for the many domains of life, there are also many digital services that need to be accessed, internet, usage, let's say, that needs to happen in a savvy way. And that is why exactly within DEUS, there are different mini projects, as we just mentioned. And I remember there was one that was called the Tartu Help Bot, or like the Scam Map, which are two of among those, let's say, that we're going to talk about today. I would say that we can briefly introduce those so that listeners have an idea of what is going on, let's say, with the different teams working on this project.
So we have been working for like a year and a half. So we had like a first cohort of digital voice, and Olena represents them. And now we are just starting with the second cohort, which will be finished like in this autumn. So we're kind of, having two generations, and we learning and adjusting. So the projects with the first selection of two types. So one are more rather informative. So Tartu Helpbot and Scam Map, and professional development is more like intensive training. So Tartu Helpbot is a program that automates linking people to outside hyperlinks. So in a Telegram chat with the Tartu community of Ukrainians, more than 800 persons, that was created especially after the full-scale invasion. They often ask questions, and we can see that there are patterns. So they often ask these same questions, and people who are knowledgeable have to repeat it again and again, and it's inefficient. So the team analyzed these typical requests and found answers to them. So people click, go to the bot, then have these options or these questions, find what they want, and click, and they get their outside link.
I will chip in simply to say this is also something that happens, for example, in the Facebook groups, like expats in or like a international community in. At some point, the new members are going to ask the same questions. Also, because in any case, there is a number of questions that are just those that you just cannot escape if you are aiming to integrate and relocate and integrate, let's say, to a different country.
Just want to say that perhaps people want a human touch and they want to hear a response from a person. It's also normal. But for example, if it's like midnight and no one is up, or 3 a.m., a person needs an answer. So then the automated system helps. Scam Map is to prevent the abuse of people's lack of awareness. So as you know, in Estonia, all these like fake Omniva delivery guys using like someone's numbers, or these phishing emails, and people who are stressed in a new country, who don't know what to expect, who don't want to break any rules. They just sometimes just hastily click and lose their money or something else. So we wanted to create like the opposite of that. So Scam Map is not how to do scam, but how to prevent scam.
But thank God.
Yeah, of course.
Fortunately.
Yeah. So the team really analyzed these typical ways that these offensive people, they kind of try to sneak into people's trust, and help to see that, observe, and prevent going further. So they analyze official like police websites and recommendations, but also like newer trends, and made them visually appealing. So you don't have to read like 10 pages of text. It's all visualized as infographics and what to do, and it's really nice.
I think that then, in terms of the professional empowerment mini project, Olena, let's get to you. So tell us a bit about this project, but also tell us a bit about exactly how have you lived basically your role of digital envoy within this project? What did you do? What did it entail? What were you thinking?
Okay, where do I start? So how did I live that? Well, for me, it was beneficial very much. Even before I started to help others, the project was helpful for me because, as Dmitro said, the idea was that they at first train us, so that then we're eligible to train other people and spread the knowledge, kind of like this chain of sharing useful information. And before we got to our own project, we got exposed to a lot of new knowledge, a lot of master classes from people from the e-governance academy, from people of the outside. And they were kind of like training us to be really good project managers, to make solutions in a way that actually fix problems, and not just like you're like, oh, I'm just gonna do something without even asking the people, is that what they want, is that what they need? So I think just for me, I learned a lot during this project, and it also helped me as a Ukrainian in a sense to find my own community, because it was almost like 30 of us digital invoice at a time. Some people left earlier, but a lot of us stayed. So I found my own community. I increased my own digital skills because even through all these different projects, I also was exposed to the knowledge they were sharing about the scam map, about the Tartu help bot, all these other things. So it was super beneficial for me. And then our own project, how we got to it, basically our team was a bunch of younger people, and we were just like acknowledging that all the digital skills are important, but sometimes when you don't have your basic skills basic needs covered, you don't even have time to kind of learn about the scams. You don't have time to, I don't know, maybe improve some more elevated digital skills. And the basic needs, how you cover them, is you have to be employed, you have to have a job, you have to earn money. And we were young ourselves. Some of us already had jobs in Estonia, others didn't have jobs. So it was kind of a personal pain for some of us. And we were just like, okay, maybe that will resonate with other Ukrainians as well. So we tried to figure out if it's a problem that is relevant to other people, and that's how we kind of made it work.
And so, in terms of then like the content of it and like the specifics of this mini project, uh, if I'm not wrong, it's called a professional empowerment through digital skills. So basically, the goal is professional empowerment, and the digital skills are framed as a tool, obviously, to get to that end. What did the content of the project entail? Meaning, in practice, no, entering the a job market that is new is always challenging, even when it just comes to normal conditions, let's say, of relocation or migration, and obviously when that is forced instead,
Mm-hmm.
obviously presents maybe even some challenges that could be of a motivational nature, or that could be
Yeah,
of motivational nature based on perhaps lack of awareness that certain things could be done in a certain way instead of another, and then
yeah.
frustration based on that, etc., etc. How did this project, for example, on this aspect, how did you feel that it helped, let's say, Ukrainians? What did it communicate, let's say?
Okay, so about the format, how we did it, we decided that we want to talk to people in real life, and kind of have them in one room so that we share the knowledge, but also to give them a space to share the knowledge with each other. Kind of, so we had people who already had jobs in Estonia, people who had no experience working in Estonia, so at different stages. And for them to also like communicate, it was very empowering for them. Because, for example, you, from your perception, you might think you are the only loser who didn't have any chances to find a job. But then when you hear from other people, whether they are like uplifting stories or failure moments, it also gives you this like confidence boost to understand I'm not alone. This is normal. That's how it's going. And as we initially, we wanted to focus mostly just on digital skills because that's what like the bigger umbrella of DUSA entails. But as we started working with them, we did it kind of like twofold, to focus on digital skills, but also kind of developing their confidence and mental capacity, because it's also very important. We were lucky that one of our members of the project is a psychologist with education in psychology. So even with the digital skills, at first you have to overcome maybe some psychological barriers to understand that it's not scary, it's not complicated. I can get to it, I can understand it. We had, for example, some participants of our seminars, people who worked in Ukraine, let's say at a factory for 20 years, and they never even had the need to create a CV, which is basically a thing that you need right now if you are like gonna enter another job market. They never had the need to know how to sell themselves and their skills, which is both a digital skill but also like a soft skill to know how to kind of present yourself, so that you are not desperate to find a job, but the job market also looks at you like, oh, this is a good candidate, to kind of have this mindset shift as well, that it's not just I have stuff to offer. Because a lot of people that we had, they were not that only like lacking digital skills, but also lacking this self-worth and confidence, and understanding that, okay, yes, the situation is hard, I'm lost in this country, but I still have knowledge to offer, even if I have language barriers, or if I have like some other, you have to still adjust your experience to a new environment, but you can do it. And we saw that when we were working with other Ukrainians, they were uplifting each other. Like, sometimes you can doubt yourself, but then when you see other people, you're like, no, but you're so cool, you have this and this background. So it was really like a magic to see it happening, of people coming together and then like really helping each other, and we also participated in that. And so we had several different seminars. One was basically focused on like how even to look for a job in Estonia, what are the platforms. So we compiled all this information like CV Keskus, how to Google for concrete, maybe you might not know what the job title is even called, but you can look what are the requirements and see what fits you, how to adjust your CV, because some people, okay, they created CV, but it could have been made like 10 years ago, they never updated it, and they use the same CV for every job. And we are saying like, if you just add a little like twitches, you're not lying, you're just kind of creating this CV to fit this job, and then you already have a higher success rate. We also had another seminar based specifically on LinkedIn, because for example, okay, you're in Estonia, maybe you have some barriers such as language, which is hard to learn, especially if you were forced to relocate and it was never like your plans to learn the language. But if you open yourself to online job market, you are no longer limited to just Estonian job market. So you can go on LinkedIn and find remote jobs. So even if you're working or like sitting in Estonia physically, you can find work online. And this is a very proud moment, a cool success story, that we had one participant who joined for the LinkedIn seminar. He like crafted his page with some recommendations, and then I was following him on LinkedIn, we connected. So I saw like a month later that he got an internship through LinkedIn. Then of that internship, he got a full-time job offer. And now he continues to work there. So it really makes me feel good to know that our like literally helped someone to secure a job. And it's not a job in Estonia, but he lived in Estonia and he got it online through LinkedIn, through the digital skills that we kind of shared and provided. So
Of course, and actually, to chip in on this with a comment before I ask you a few things about this, Olena, Dmitro, what's the point of view on what we just heard? Considering that in any case you're a bit more of a seasoned Estonian resident, so do you think that in that sense there are things that this project that now you look at and you think, yeah, this definitely needed to be tackled, or yes, this I'm glad that was done in this way?
Well, definitely these projects, and especially professional empowerment, they address real human needs of Ukrainians in Estonia, because having a job is like, a cornerstone and feeling secure, of having like source of income, of having like, personal satisfaction that, I'm worthy. So it's a really helpful thing, but it's also social, because then people connect and don't feel lonely. They bring some value. They're useful. I just want to say that the goal of this program, DUCE, the overall program, is to help 1,000 persons, individually, and then to spread information around more than 10,000 persons.
Okay, we talked about the trainer's perspective so far, quite to an extent. So I would say that instead there was something that exactly as part of this trainer's perspective you were mentioning before, which is that we need to know, in order to help people, we need to know what are people's actual needs, in the sense that you obviously might have, let's say, certain plans and have a certain understanding. Let's say you as an organization, a random individual, let's say you might have a grasp, let's say that people need this in this moment. But then when there is actually obviously investment, let's say, done into it in terms of time, work, funding, as we said as well, then these efforts should not be mistargeted. In your specific case, how did this first part look like? Like the part of actually getting to know from the people themselves what were their needs, and then to actually incorporate them to find a response to those needs.
yeah, so like I think, as I mentioned previously, at first it was just like a hunch, because what I think e-governance academy did very well is that they already involved Ukrainians. So like they are gonna know better what the others Ukrainian needs. But then I think it's my sociological background, we were like, let's do focus groups. Let's talk to people. Okay, this is our
I
hunch.
thought so. I thought of that when you mentioned it before. I was like, oh, so you did focus groups. Yes.
Yeah, so because I was like, this is what we think might work. And there were like 6 of us in the project, in our project, so it's already like some amount of people, and we agreed on that. But we were like, no, let's talk to more people, different backgrounds, people who maybe have been here longer, and ask them what were their challenges of looking for a job, so that maybe we can learn from their experience and already offer it to newcomers, kind of like to help them ease into that search process. So we had 2 focus groups, one in Tallinn and one in Tartu. And we talked to, I think in total, like 10 people in these focus groups, like intense, like 2 hours, just talking to these people, kind of collaborating with them as well to understand what would be the best approach. Is it better to then work with other Ukrainians in person, or develop maybe some online seminars? So we were really flexible and adjustable, and I think this is important in projects like that, because even after these focus groups we had a plan. We were like, okay, we're going to do this and that. But then after even our just first seminar, we realized, okay, we should maybe move the timeline a bit, or focus on these other skills, because that's what's more in demand. Because as you said, like, not to miss target, who are you helping? In our ideal mind, we also had a target audience. We're like, okay, we're going to focus on young people, maybe like students who are freshly graduated, or like we had all this from 18 to 35. But as you're spreading the information on social media, as you are sharing what's going to happen, you cannot control who comes or who doesn't come. And we had people from different backgrounds. We had young people, but we also had people in their 50s, because they still have the same needs. So even at that point already, we also had to adjust our materials. So we ensure that everyone is kind of like speaking the same language, understanding what the basics requirements, before we can move into, like more like savvy digital skills. So this is, I think, was also a learning moment. Like, talk to people, ask what they need, not just assume, because they also might just give you an answer what they need, and then it's already easier for you just to implement it. And also be flexible and be prepared to adjust if needed.
Thanks a lot for the overview, Olena. Dmitro, to connect to something that Olena just mentioned, it was the fact that, for example, asking the people who have certain needs, let's say, means also getting answers on who are these other people that they would like to interact with when they are in the moment of needing something. So, for example, Olena mentioned that one of the instances, one of the options, let's say, could have been exactly speaking to other Ukrainians, no, who are maybe like in Estonia in that moment or in that situation right now. Different levels of commonalities, let's say, within the general one of finding yourself in Estonia. So, from this more community perspective, let's call it this way, no, I think. Is this project also like contributing to strengthening, let's say, like uniting more the fabrics, let's say, of the Ukrainian community in Estonia? What have you noticed in that sense? What's your take?
Indeed, this was one of the goals. So, we not only help them have like skills, but we also support more subtle matters, materials like this unity and belonging. So, when people feel they cared of, they definitely feel better. So when someone, approaches them and tries to help and figure out, and especially when there are results. So this is like on one side. And of course, the envoys themselves, they benefit even more, because they form teams, they work together for a year, they do something meaningful as volunteers. So, in addition to their studies, work, or other commitments. What we saw in our surveys, that indeed people felt like a growth of this, sense of fulfillment from what they do, and a connection with community, and a feeling of contribution to a community. So indeed, all these kind of social effects are in place. This is what we want, to launch initiatives that really get people together.
I would like to have one very quick input, like from each of you, in terms of what was the thing perhaps that you expected the least, let's say, to either find out as information or to find out that it was working, like that it was working well. Gives a little bit of a window into the life cycle of a project like this.
Yeah, I think what I was surprised about is that how these, results, these materials can have a life of their own outside of the project. Because we had a request from the Tallinn Integration Center that helps actually migrants who come to Estonia from different countries. So of course Ukrainians are the majority, or kind of the special group, but there are people from, I don't know, African countries, Arabic countries, from all over the world. And they wanted, they learned about our initiative and wanted to use these materials to share with their clients. So they posted these in Ukrainian for our target group, but they also translated to other languages, and they spread it via their channels, also via email. So this is replicable and useful to any basically group of migrants who have to adjust in Estonia.
What just comes to mind, I think there were a lot of nice surprises, but just like what came to my mind, what I didn't expect is, I guess, that from this project and my involvement in that, I myself will find a job. But that's kind of how it happened. I was working on this topic, I got so involved, and right now I'm working in a project that is targeted at implementing anti-discrimination policies towards migrants and refugees in Estonia and Finland. And this project helped me so much to gather the information about, let's say, the other side, what Ukrainians are struggling with, so that now when I'm working with companies and helping them to implement certain anti-discrimination policies, I'm already having the knowledge of the people and their experience. So I, like, when you zoom out, now when I look back in the past, I understand how it all worked together, and now I am where I am because of the voluntarily project that I joined, and you see, like, benefited from it a lot. And I think, to build upon what Metro said as well, like this community, how people help each other, you kind of give them the platform as we organized. But throughout the seminars, we already saw some people, like just meeting each other for the first time and then living together and then like planning to go for a coffee and help each other with some other issues. So how the whole idea of the project, they train us to train others, but then you see that the knowledge you share, it continues to spread. So like one person from Ukrainian family comes, goes home, helps all their other members or their friends to like create CV, build LinkedIn profile. So it has this sustainability, and that's like a very pleasant surprise.
And definitely a propagation effect, like a little cobblestone in the water, let's
Yes,
say.
indeed. Yes.
Well, Lena, thanks a lot for joining us today in this episode.
Thank you.
And thanks a lot also to Dimitro.
Thank you.
That's also it for me for today. Tune into the next one.
This podcast is brought to you by the eGovernance Academy. Tune in next time.